I was Googling rubstick. If you look at Swedish, right? Swedish, rubstick means Brillo pads. And another one of Willie Mullins's, I know entered at Fairy House as well, Franco de Port.
I really don't think this horse will ever be beat in his career. I think there is no horse that I have seen so far, or even in the past, that could beat this horse over any trip.
Hello and welcome back to the Inside Track, brought to you by William Hill. This is our first show post at Cheltenham Festival, so we really hope that you are over your Cheltenham Blues, or at least getting there anyway. But we still have so much to look forward to in the jumping game, because the Aintree Festival is just around the corner. Of course, the Grand National being the feature race of the three-day extravaganza up in Liverpool. And on this week's show, we're going to be looking ahead to Aintree, and I will be looking at certain races in the company of James Mackie. He's going to be joining us later. But first and foremost, we have our very special guest this week, who needs no introduction. He is Scottish racing's biggest flag bearer, Gordon Brown. Gordy, great to have you with us. How are you?
I'm great, Kate. Looking forward to, the world's greatest race. Not the world's greatest steeplechase, the Grand National, the world's greatest race, I reckon.
I would have to agree with that, to be honest. And we know that you have quite a connection to this particular race. But just to start with, I mean, what does the Grand National itself as a race mean to you?
Tremendous race. Captures the imagination of the whole nation. 500 million viewers worldwide. The turnover in betting is just through the roof. It's insane. But where there's maybe the Cheltenham Festival and the Gold Cup in particular is more the race for the connoisseur, I think the Grand National's the people's race. Up and down the country, everybody, if they don't even have a flutter on the Grand National, they certainly watch it. And, well, it's all about the thrills and spills. And this year is as open a race as I can ever remember. And there's always a great story going back through the years. You know, Red Rum winning 3 Grand Nationals, the owner, the trainer of the race, Rachel Blackmore, the first woman jockey to win the race. Every single year, Kate, no matter what horse wins the Grand National, there's a great story behind it.
It always makes our job as journalists that bit easier, doesn't it, the Grand National? Because, like I say, when you've got those editorial lines and there's always a story with the winner, that it just makes our job that bit easier. But in terms of great stories for the race and your memories of it, for you, which winner kind of sticks out the most for that particular line?
Well, that's the tricky one, because I've actually been the voice of Aintree for 12 or 15 years. Jockey Club racecourses, you know, it's a great job to have, but there is pressure associated. As I mentioned, but I'm under the eye of the ITV floor manager, and I'm under a sort of 4.5 second count as the horses leave the paddock to link to Laura Wright, who sings the national anthem, and you just think the floor manager standing in front of you with the second counting down. You actually, at some points of that line, you're being held by, as I say, 500 million people worldwide. So it's fantastic to be there right in the thick of it, right in the Winners Enclosure, calling the winner back in, seeing usually a maximum field of 40 leave the paddock. Which one are you going to welcome back in? Favourites? Well, I mean, before my time, so to speak, you've got to think of Red Rum. Those 3 Grand Nationals, you know, 73, 74, second in 75 and second in 76, and then winning for the third time in 77. Would Tiger Roll have emulated him had we not lost that 2020 renewal due to the pandemic? I think he might have done. And of course, since Tiger Roll, as I mentioned, we've had Rachel Blackmore win the Grand National. What hasn't she won? And, you know, from a personal level as well, one for Arthur. Sadly lost his life the other day to colic. He won in 2017 to give Scotland a second win in the race following Rubstick way back in 1979. And you know what, kids? A funny old thing racing. I was looking back my old race cards. When he won one for Arthur in 2017, his number cloth was number 22. Going back to 1979, guess what number Rubstick was?
Was it 22 by any chance?
It was. And listen, here's another throwaway line about Rubstick. Not a lot of people know, although he was trained in the Scottish borders and written by a Cumbrian, I was Googling Rubstick. If you look at Swedish, right? Swedish, Rubstick means Brillo pads.
What a catchy name to use for a horse there. And all the extra research and everything you have to do, no stone is left unturned for Gordon Brown on his research for these horses going down the line. Now, just for your role this year, though, of course, like I say, we are hoping for, well, lots of people will be hoping for another Scottish winner, but we'll move on to the runners in this race in our next section. But for your role this year, are you doing the same job again, Gordy?
It's pretty much the same job again. I shall probably be catching up with some of the William Hill ambassadors, Sir Anthony McCoy and Barry Gerrits, maybe doing the odd punters panel. I've got to interview Noble Yates' jockey from last year, Sam Whaley-Cohen, who of course retired in the sport. We do a sort of tour around the racecourse with the Grand National trophy up in the Randox box. People can have the selfie with the new trophy. It's always a stunning trophy. There's course walks around the track. It's close up and personal at all the fences. 30 to be jumped in total. Well, of course, a few of them are jumped on 2 occasions, the likes of Beeches, Brook, etc. But no, the whole thing, it all comes together. I'm actually there for a production meeting on Wednesday. The funny thing is, you get there on the Wednesday and you see these massive grandstands. The Saturday's always a 70,000 sellout, and there's just always, you can close your eyes and almost hear Red Rum's commentary in the background. Of course, he's buried beside the winning post, and it's got so many memories. There's just so much atmosphere at Aintree, even when there's nobody there, and it's just got such great history. I think the official first ever running, and I know people were trying to track back races that were run under the guise of a Grand National before, but 1839 was the first Grand National winner, and I just wondered where the word came from. The first Grand National winner, I think very appropriately, was called Lottery, and of course we've got a national lottery this year. I wonder, was lottery in those days regarded as what we regard a lottery as in present times? So I think no race is better named in terms of the fact that the very first winner was called Lottery. But it's got such history, Kate, and as I say, you go back to 1960, the very first televised winner of the race, a horse called Merriman, and Jerry Scott, who became a starter in the race. And since then, of course, we've got all sorts of jockey head cams, and punters watching from home can actually feel as if they're riding in the race when they see some of the footage from these head cam shot. I'm sure you approve of those. The fences have changed. I'm the first to admit that, for a good reason. The safety of horse and jockey is paramount. Nobody more than me wants to see them all go out and all come back safely. So the fences do not take as much jumping, and therefore, as a result of that, we've got a much classier race. Not just this year, but since the alterations of the fences, and we just hope for a bit of nice ground as well. And you'll probably be discussing it later on the show as well. If not all about the Grand National, I actually, I prefer it to Cheltenham. There is nothing like the first day of Aintree to get the Grand National meeting off to a real flyer. Throughout the 3 days, apart from 3 races over the Grand National fences, the Fox Hunter Shades, the Topper, and the Grand National, there's 11 Grade 1 races, Kate. 11 Grade 1s in 3 days. 4 on the Thursday, 4 on the Friday, and 3 on the Saturday. It isn't all about the Grand National, but most of it is really.
Exactly. Like you say, it mostly is. But honestly, if you've never been to Aintree, you've never done the Grand National Festival, please get yourself to Aintree, because it is a whole different atmosphere to its own. I absolutely adore this meeting year after year. And Gordy, it is no wonder that the Jockey Club employ you to do the job that you do at the Aintree Festival. Given the stats you've just reeled off just like that, very, very impressive. And you've really set the scene for us looking ahead to this year's race. And in our next section, we're going to bring in James Mackie to look ahead to the big one at this year. Well, we're delighted that James Mackie joins us now to look ahead to the 2023 Grand National. But James, before we move on, great to have you back first and foremost, my usual partner in crime. But you do have a big bit of news, though, that I hope that you're happy to tell the viewers about.
Yeah, I do, Kate, yeah. Obviously, on the weekend, when I went to Poland and got engaged to my girlfriend, been together nearly 8 years now, so I thought it was the right time. We had a lovely weekend away. It's been a bit of news to me, but now we've got to move on to the Grand National, haven't we? And I'm really looking forward to that. So, we'll see how we go.
Oh, a big congratulations from all of us here, no doubt, to you and your fiancée as well. Very well done. And hopefully you can find a winner of the Grand National to help you pay for the wedding anyway. But Lord knows it's going to count. So, yeah, we will hopefully pick out a few bigger prize horses then that might well at least reach the frame, if not a win. And the betting with us currently here at William Hill, we are the official betting partner for the race this year. Non-runner money back, of course, as well, which you might just want to utilise with a few of these horses having cross entries as well between the Irish Grand National and the Aintree Grand National itself. But CORACH Rambler heads the betting as the 6-1 market leader from last year's winner, Noble Yates, in at 8-1. The cross-country hero is Delta Work at 11-1. Then it's another Cheltenham Festival winner, Gaillard de Menil, at 12-1. Last year's second, Any Second now at 14s, which is the same price about Mr. Incredible, and it is 16-1 bar. So, James, start with yourself, please. Where are we looking?
Yeah, obviously we'll start at the top of the market with CORACH Rambler, and I think this race over the last 5 or 10 years, you've had to look more at the Cheltenham Festival than you have previously, I think, because there's been bigger prices pop up that maybe not have gone to the festival. But over the last few years, there has been horses either running the Ultima or, like we've seen this year with Noble Yates, go in the Gold Cup. So we'll start with CORACH Rambler at the top of the market, 6-1. Look, 6-1 is probably a little bit skinny when looking at an Ante-Post market. Yes, it's non-runner money back, but 6-1 for a Grand National winner, if you know what I mean. You want to try and look at a bigger price, but I do respect CORACH Rambler massively. He's got a perfect profile for the race. He's obviously well in off the back of what he did in the Ultima last time out. To win the Ultima back-to-back off a mark of 140 and a mark of 146, the handicap has actually put him up to 156 still. But obviously in this race, they stay off the same mark they do before what they would race off at Cheltenham. So effectively, he's £10 well in. Really. So that's why at the top of the market, he is 6-1. He has to have a big chance. He's been set up for this race all season. He obviously stays very well. But he's an obvious shout, isn't he, at 6-1 at the top of the market. So you might want to look at bigger prices. We'll talk about some more like Noble Yates, last year's winner. He was absolutely superb, wasn't he? Sam Whaley-Cohen obviously gave him an absolutely cracking ride. It was his last ride. It was a great story. And obviously 50-1 was a huge price. But if you look at what he's done this season, it's almost like, yes, they wanted to go back to the National, but they wanted to try him in the Gold Cup, like the Many Clouds, the Cotswolds. I know they've all been prep runs, and the Gold Cup was actually a brilliant prep run for the Grand National because the way he was off the bridle so far out, then to stay on up the hill and actually grab fourth. But for me, off his weight, it's a very, very different proposition off a mark of 147 last season, off what? Very, very much higher. I think it's nearly £19 higher at 166 going into this year. So that's going to be another tough test. I think the other ones to take out of the Cheltenham Festival to go into the Grand National was 2 I picked out for Willie Mullins. I think Gaillard de Menil obviously went on to win the National Hunt Chase. I think this horse could be really feasibly treated. If there was rain to fall before the Saturday, I think this horse could have a big shout. You look how he jumped in that 3 mile 6 race in the National Hunt Chase. He almost took his time to get going. I think he was maybe probably a lucky winner on the Dave Marler mission, wouldn't have fell. But the way he stayed on past Chemical Energy was, for me, thinking he's going to go and stay on even further. If you look, he's a Grade 1 winner. He's a Grade 1 winner over hurdles, Grade 1 winner over fences. And class normally comes to the fore recently in these races. You have Delta Work, who's a 5-time Grade 1 winner, back-to-back cross-country chase winner, who's in the market as well. But I thought Gaillard de Menil had a massive chance, only still being, 7 years of age. But he isn't the easiest horse in the world to win with. And just finally, Mr. Incredible. I thought he ran a cracking trial in the Kim Muir, and he's currently, 14s? I think he's actually boosted with 18s under the inside track specials. So it was a horse we put up, obviously, at the weights lunch, and he did get back slightly then. But I thought he ran a cracking trial. He was probably another one that needs soft ground as well. Obviously, if you look in the Classic Chaser, that was on heavy ground. He finished second. And obviously in the Kim Muir, he chased out Angel's Dawn and Stumptown, who were probably well in with the handicapper. I think Mr. Incredible still well in off a mark of 145. I think it's 10 stone 4 he runs off. I thought, 18-1, he was a player as well. So they're just a few at the top of the market. But I think Cheltenham, the Cheltenham Festival this year is a race, is a festival, that you have to look at when looking at the National this year.
Yeah, and James makes a lot of sense there, doesn't he, Gordy, in the fact of looking at the Cheltenham Festival and winners of that, or horses that have gone very close or run good trials at least, then to take into Aintree is probably a good way to look at it. But both of ahead of the market, which horses stand out to you?
Quite a few. I think there's over 30 horses running at Cheltenham still in the National. It's as good a trial as you can get, isn't it? And because the way the fixture list has been planned and well planned now, there's actually a month between Cheltenham and Aintree, which gives horses plenty of time to recover. We've got the 1, 2, 3 from last year's Grand National still on target as well. Noble Yates, of course, I know James has touched on any second now, and Delta Work as well. So the 1, 2, 3 go again. Stats are against Noble Yates. I know he ran a blinder last year to win the race as an outsider. I know he was a good fourth in the Gold Cup. I saw him win the Many Clouds race on Picture Chase Day at Aintree. I've never seen a 3 mile chaser produce a turn their foot in the closing stages like him. But not since Golden Miller in 1934 has a horse won the Gold Cup and then won the Grand National in the same year. I know Noble Yates won it last year. He could win it this year, but obviously the Gold Cup was beyond him. So the stats, I think, are stacking up a little bit. I think he's going to be ridden by Sean Bowen as well, with Sam Whaley-Cohen not riding anymore. Any second now, I respect. He's a horse that was third 2 years ago and second last year in the JP McManus Colours. We've touched on Delta Work, of course, who was involved in the cross-country race. Galvin was in that as well. We go back to Gallia Demeni. I think I read somewhere that Willie Mullins said maybe he'd quite a tough race at Cheltenham, and he was maybe a little bit doubtful either to go to Fairyhouse or to Aintree. Touched on CORACH Rambler, of course, Lucinda Russell. But a great story, that, because co-owned by her dad, who sadly passed away earlier this year. And of course, she lost her 2017 Grand National winner, won for Arthur recently as well. I agree with James. I think his price is very skinny. Although to win the Ultima for the second year running was no mean feat. I think his style of racing will suit Aintree, gets into a nice rhythm. He'll come from off the pace, but I'm not sure if he'll be good enough this year. Another British challenger that is maybe just a wee bit under the radar, Lynn Milos, trained by Dan Skelton. I was at Kelso when I thought that Harry just got a bit of a rush of blood and kicked for home too soon in the Premier Chase. I think he'll outrun his odds, Lynn Milos. And others that I'd like to chuck into the mix. Helm 16, trained by Sandy Thompson. They're hoping to get in. Now, he didn't run that great at Kelso the other day, but he'll come on for the race. Spoke to the jockey, Craig Bickle. He says he blew up his first run since wind surgery. And if you go back to the 2021 Beecher Chase, he jumped like a buck and was just chinned in the line and beaten the nose by Snow Leopardess. So that form stacks up quite well. And another one of Willie Mullins, I know, entered at Fairyhouse as well. Franco Deport, who was third in the cross-country race this year and has been running in Grade 1 and Grade 2 company. So maybe a bigger price, Franco Deport. I've got another one up my sleeve as well, so Kate, that will unleash in just a second or two.
Oh, so we'll let James Mackie then get to his bigger price selections. Gordy has set it up quite nicely for you there, James, as well. So no pressure, but you've got to meet some of those prices now.
Oh, yeah, he really has. And a few of he's mentioned that the Grand National Wastelands, we also mentioned, obviously, Lamilos. I think he's banged on there. I think if you actually look what Harry Skelton did, I think he's probably kicking himself when he went back into the weighing room. But I don't think personally that horse was at his full capabilities that day. I think it was a definite prep run. I think he probably should have won, but he'll be 100% for the Grand National. I think around 20 to 1, that's got a price as well. But yes, Royal Maget, I think it's called, 33 to 1, has been backed in actually with 66s, 50s, now into 33s with William Hill, obviously non-runner money back. This horse for Patrick Griffin is really, really interesting, even though he's an 11-year-old. If you look at what his profile's like and how he might go over the 4 mile 2, I just think he'll be absolutely set up for him. Look, older horses in this race is one thing you can't excuse, you can't get rid of, because if you look at what Tiber Roll's done, you look at Red Rum, you look at older horses in this race. Yes, it was won by a 7-year-old last season, but that was a bit of an anomaly. If you actually look at the stats, older horses go on to perform better in this race. We've seen Any Second Now finishing the top 4 the last 3 years. Delta Work obviously finished 3rd last year as well. So this horse being 11 is absolutely no problem. If you look what he's done this year, Centre Tremor on New Year's Day, that was in the Grade 3 Savills Chase. That was over 2 mile 6. He was only beaten by Manila Rindo and Statler that day. We know how good those are. The Grade 1 winning chasers, especially Manila Rindo, obviously a Gold Cup winner, and Statler, even though he underperformed in the Gold Cup, he's a much better horse than that. He's next been seen at Down Royal. And that was only a few weeks back. That was actually during the Cheltenham Festival. He was at Down Royal and he ran a storm. He was giving £5 to Longhouse Poet that day. Longhouse Poet's a lesser price, around 16s, I think, in the market at the moment. He was giving away £5 and only finished 1 1/4 lengths behind him. He did have a £5 claim on that day, but you look in the terms of weight. I thought Rio Marjan ran a better trial in my eyes, and at the prices at currently 33s, and where Longhouse Poet's a smaller price, I think Royal Marge is better off at the weights as well. So I think 33 to 1, that would be my bigger price play at this moment in time.
Okay, fair enough. You have managed to meet those bigger prices. And 33 to 1 about Royal Marge then for Patrick Griffin in here. And Gordon, I'm going to leave the last words to you as we wrap this section up for your... You teased it up quite nicely there for your last bigger price play.
Yeah, well, I'm agreeing with Royal Madge, as James says. I'll touch on that. I have another one as well, not such a big price. But yeah, I was speaking to James Griffin. We did the Cheltenham preview circuit, and James is the son and assistant of Patrick. He just failed to get in, I think, last year by one, this horse. And I think he had a bit of a hiccup as well. And he was second at Down Raw, and they've actually prepared him specially for this race. So hopefully he'll get in this year. And the other one that I was going to chuck at you, though, is Vanillier, trained by Gavin Cromwell. I think he's about 20-1 with William Hill. Second in the Bobby Jones February. He was third in the cross-country chase last year. And he was reckoned to be almost the new coming, if you like, a couple of years ago. He won they won the Albert Bartlett Novices Ordo. So if I had to chuck two, I agree with James about Royal Madge. And the other one, Gavin Cromwell trained Vanillier. Those are the two main ones I would chuck at the board, Kate.
Oh, I love Vanillier. I absolutely adore it. Just a big, brave bowling ball of a horse, isn't he? Like I say, he was really highly touted back in his day, and you always knew that this was eventually going to be the way he would go in time. So potentially everything's come together for him for the 8-year-old. So that is quite a comprehensive look at plenty of the runners then for the Grand National. Gordy, thank you so much for your company on this show. And I'll be talking to you again very shortly anyway on William Hill Racing Radio, no doubts. But thank you so much for your company.
Kate, look forward to that.
Thank you so much to Gordy. So on our next section, we will be moving on to looking ahead at one of the other races at the Aintree Festival. Now, of course, the Grand National is the feature of the Aintree Festival itself, but as Gordon Brown did tell us, there are so many other fascinating contests on the cards, and one of those is the William Hill Aintree Hurdle. This is a Grade 1 prize over 2 mile full on the Thursday of the festival, and the betting with us here at William Hill currently breathes Constitution Hill as the 1-6 favourite, from Epperton to 8-1 in next, then Zana here at 10-1, Pied Piper 14, Dear Old Charger at 16-1, 20-1 bar. Now, it is worth saying that currently for the each way play in this, we are offering 2 places, but that is across the industry because essentially, James, we're expecting this race to cut up quite a bit with plenty of these horses being sighted elsewhere. So Constitution Hill looks as though he's going to be going off at a very, very short price.
Yeah, he definitely is, and he deserves to, doesn't he? He's not a better betting proposition at all, but we've got to talk about what this horse has done so far in his career. An absolute superstar. I don't know about UK, but it's the greatest hurdler I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I honestly think I'm getting that hyped up about this horse. I know many people are, but I really don't think this horse will ever be beat in his career. I think there is no horse that I have seen so far, or even in the past, that could beat this horse over any trip. I think he'll turn out to be. I don't know what they're going to do with this horse, if you know what I mean. They could go over fences next season. Obviously, you're going to stay over hurdles for the rest of this. Probably his last run of the season. But unless he falls or picks up an injury mid-race, there is no horse I've seen today currently around that can beat this horse, because he is just an absolute superstar. 5 times he's won Grade 1s now, 6 races under rules. He never had to come off the bridle. He hasn't done anything wrong, has he? He hasn't done anything wrong. He's such an easy ride. He's got such great temperament. He's a superstar, but he's 1-6. He'll be short on the day. There's 10 runners currently in this race as we talk. One on Tuesday, the 28th of March, obviously from an Ante-Post point of view. But I think this race is going to cut up. I can understand why it's only 2 places still at the moment. And when I was looking through the field, the one that caught my eye from probably a price perspective, and the horse that's definitely going to be ridden not to win the race, to go and pick up that place, it's Zana here. And this horse he's only 6 years of age, but he seems to be about forever, and he can throw in some real wobbles. He can throw in some bad runs. But from what he's done at back-to-back Cheltenham festivals, what he did at this festival last season at Aintree, I know he fell at the last one going up against Epperton, but that would have been a great race to the line. I think Epperton probably would have still won, but Zana here ran a cracker, I thought, until falling. If you look what he'd done in the Champion Hurdle last time out, ridden out the back, he was 66-1. He was always playing for that second, third spot. He only finished 4 lengths behind Stademan. If you look what Stademan's done this season, you'd expect for him to finish way further ahead of Zana here. So I thought it was a great tactical ride. I think he'd be ridden exactly the same. And I think when you look at the other horse in the race, you can pick a lot of holes in them. Not to say there isn't holes in Zana here, but Charger and Brewing Up a Storm, they're now 10 years of age. They're not at their peak capabilities. Like I said, with Zana here, he's only 6. Yes, he's throwing some wobblies, but he's still improving, I think. And even though he's run well at 2 miles, he has shown he could probably go up further over 2 mile 4 and running this race last season. So You've got So Rule, who's 11 years of age now, not his peak capabilities. Highway 102, a handicapper really, shouldn't be running in grade ones. You've got also horses like Pied Piper, I Like to Move It, and Napa's Hill. They've looked to me in those races, they don't stay at all. So 2 mile 4 wouldn't be something I want to step them up in trip. That then leaves you with Epperton and Zanahiyr. Epperton, I think, will probably go to Punchestown to run in the mare's race there, or she could even go in the Punchestown Champion Hurdle. She's very versatile. But I think that what Nicky Henderson was saying. So if Zanahiyr was to turn up here, he could be left against what? Maybe 3-4 runners, obviously bar Constitution Hill that he's not going to beat, and playing for that second spot, currently 10-1, and I think he'd be short on the day. I think he's the way to play it. So Zanahiyr, although a bit of a headbanger, I hope at 10-1 he can go and grab that second spot.
I'm in total agreement with you about Zanahiyr. I didn't know which way you were going to be playing this race. We didn't discuss this beforehand, but that was just the given for me as well in this particular contest. When he saw 10-1 about Zanahiyr, he's one of the horses we're pretty sure is going to be running in this race. As you say, he ran in this race last year, fell when I agree. I thought that Epperton was probably going to go on to win anyway, but he was still going to throw up really, just a fascinating finish between the pair of those two at that stage anyway, before he did take that tumble. And I know that this season has not gone to plan for him. They've tried him over a variety of different trips. But for me, he's one of those typical juveniles where he was such a talented juvenile back in the day. But so often with horses of that division, they do just take a while to really find their way again. And I think that the majority of them do want that step up in trip as well. And I know they tried him over 3 miles earlier in the season, didn't quite work out. But that run last time out to the Champion Hurdle, it really was quite taking. For all he was well enough beaten, obviously every horse was by Constitution Hill. But to get that close to State Man in finishing third was really quite taking, and hopefully will set him up perfectly to go back to Aintree as well. So I am completely in the Zanahiyr camp. And I'm expecting Epperton to go to Ireland again anyway. But if for whatever reason they did take up this engagement with at Aintree, I was really disappointed with her at Cheltenham. And because of obviously the wonderful stories that were going on around that race, it sort of just got a little bit forgotten about, a bit brushed under the carpet, quite how disappointingly she did run when she came into this race last year, when she won this race in much better form after finishing second in the Champion Hurdle. So that really isn't an ideal prep for me if she was to go to Aintree instead, then obviously to go over to Ireland. So holding her, not expecting Zanahiyr to beat Constitution Hill at all. Hopefully we'll just get to see a wonderful performance from Constitution Hill again. And whether or not it decides if they're going to keep him over hurdles for next year, or if they are going to go novice chasing with him, that is still the debate at the minute. There's markets up about it and everything at the minute. But the step up in trip may even see him improve further. He's an Irish point-to-point background. So that is just so exciting to see. So none of us can wait to see Constitution out. And to be honest, we are expecting him to win. But with the current way that the market is being formed for the forecast for to finish second, James and I both in agreement about Zanahiyr. Now, a bit closer to the time that we're currently recording at though, James, the flat is back this weekend with Lincoln at Doncaster. And you have a bit of a way to play this race, if I'm right in saying, because the betting with us here currently at William Hill's, Alma Pier is currently the 7-2 market leader, from Awal at 5-1, Barada 10-1, Wanisa at 10-1 also, and Atrium at 12-1. Majestic is also 12-1, 14-1 bar. So how are you playing this one?
Yeah, William Hill put up their prices, I think, yesterday evening, obviously, when a few horses have come out. And just having a look through, I do like this race at Lincoln. I am more of a national hunt man than I am a flat man, but I love both codes. But for me, it's exciting when you've got the end of Aintree, really, haven't you? And you've got Punchestown, the flat kicks into gear when you have the guineas and stuff like that. And I think the Lincoln sends it off perfectly. So the one I looked at in the market, I think it's currently 18th. So we'll get into the race. It's the Charlie Hills train, 1 East at 10-1. Seen 7 times for this trainer during his career. Made his debut in August 2021. He was 6th of 14 that day in Newbury. He was a decent maiden, actually. But then in September at Ascot, over 7 furlongs, he got off the mark and he beat a subsequent Group 3 winner that day. So the form was quite strong. He finished last season 1 East by making it back-to-back wins at Salisbury, over 7 furlongs in a novice stake, and he was giving weight away again. He brought up the hat-trick in the Esher Cup. That was a good handicap, actually, at Sandown. That was on seasonal debut, last term, when seen at a mile for the first time. So it's a horse that's been progressing under Charlie Hills. It's been going over shorter trips, now being bumped up slightly. He was on a mark of 91 when he was seen at Royal Ascot. And he ran a good race. He was 6th of 30th that day in the Britannia Stakes. We know how hard the Britannia Stakes is to win. So to run on into 6th and pick up a little bit of place when he was obviously extra places on offer throughout the day. But I thought it was a good run. Look, last time out, he ran no race at all. But he put that run behind him. And off a marker 93 when last seen, he was well backed on good to soft ground at Haydock. You go and watch that race back in the old Boston Handicap. Off his marker 93, it was the soft ground that brought out the best of him that day. He got back to form. He won well. He was going away at the line. He's only up a further £3 for this event. He's off a marker 96. He's on 9 stone 1. He's 18th in the race. He'll get in now. I thought 10 to 1 with the ground currently, soft, good to soft in places, with a little bit more rain due before Saturday. I thought the ground would probably hold up. We're definitely having some soft in the description. So at 10 to 1, with one he's proven on the conditions, I thought he could run a cracker. So 1 each for me for Charlie Hills at 10 to 1.
Like it a lot. And like you say, conditions are definitely going to play a factor then at Doncaster this weekend. You say it's soft, good to soft in places, and at Doncaster with more rain forecasts ahead of the weekend. And given with this race and where it situates in the season, that very often you do want to be siding with the horse that likes more testing conditions, and One East is certainly one of those at 10 to 1. Well, James, that's everything from us on this week's show. It's good to be back, isn't it?
Oh, lovely to be back. Lovely to be back. Like you said, we've got a bit of jumps, we've got a bit of flat, haven't we? It's all nice to be back. And even though we had the Cheltenham Blues, we've got to look at the future now. And like Gordon was saying, 11 grade ones over the Aintree Festival. So plenty of great racing to come. And yeah, it's lovely to be back.
Exactly. So much still to look forward to. And it's great to be back talking to you again. So thank you so much for watching. Do remember to like and subscribe to the William Hill YouTube channel. Also, leave us a comment below with any of your selections, reflections on Cheltenham, what you're looking forward to at Aintree, or even this weekend's action as well with any of your selections. Thank you so much to Gordon Brown. Thank you so much to James for all of their hard work as per usual. We'll be back next week, so we will catch up with you then.